Good morning, everybody. A warm welcome to those attending and also to our viewers watching live on our council YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Roy Chamdell and I'm the Chairman of the Lighting Committee. But get the date right, it's Tuesday 4th of October and it's exactly 10 o'clock. Right, details of the business to be considered today are shown on the agenda copies which are available in the room, and also they are also accessible online under the live broadcast. We all know each other, but as you know, you'll be seen, but you'll only be heard if you toggle on and toggle off on your little microphones. I'm not expecting a fire alarm. If it does go off, it's a real thing. We meet outside the Miller's Tap, I believe, which is apt for a licensing committee. Mobile, tablet advices, guys, ladies, gentlemen, please switch them off, including myself. There we go. Right, before we start, I think that everybody can introduce themselves. If we start from our right, move all the way along, and then we can start the business end of the meeting.
Councillor Colin Sullivan.
Councillor Rita Chumdow.
Daniel Frere, Licensing Team Manager.
Chantel McLeod, Legal Services.
King Yip Chung, Senior Trading Standards Officer.
Janet Gardner, Councillor.
Councillor Kuldeep Lakmana.
Councillor Nelson West.
Councillor Scott Farley.
Saleh Joby, In-House Counsel, Legal Services.
Mark Braddock, Democratic Services.
Thank you, everybody. Right, we'll move on to the agenda. Apologies for absence.
Chairman, apologies have been received from Councillor Smallwood and Councillor Darren Davies. Thank you.
Any declarations of interest? Any interest at all? None? Thank you. Minutes held on the meeting held on the 6th of July. Do we agree on those? A verbal yes will be great. Thank you. Just to confirm, items marked Part 1 and Part 2. Part 1 obviously in public. On the YouTube, Part 2 will not be. We will get that. Yep. Okay, we move on to 5, Statement of Gambling Policy. Daniel.
God, I didn't realise I was first, Chairman. Good morning. Good morning, members of the Licensing Committee. Hope you're all well and it's good to see you. Daniel Frere, Licensing Team Manager. So I've got the pleasure of introducing and doing a new area, well, particularly different area, gambling. I usually speak to you in relation to alcohol and entertainment, so something a bit different, and specifically about the review of our Statement of Gambling Policy. Now, the Gambling Act 2005 came in September 2007. It covers arcades, betting shops, bingo premises, casinos, gaming machines, society lotteries, remote gambling. Gambling Commission is the main authority regulator for the Gambling Act, and the licensing authority are secondary, if you like, and we deal with premises licenses similar to the Licensing Act for land-based gambling premises. So that's how we get involved. So where are we in the process right now? On page 8, you will see where we are in the process. So on the 1st of September 2022, the new draft report went to Cabinet. They agreed on a consultation for a 6-week period starting on the 12th of October, so we're right in the middle of it. This licensing committee is an attempt to get your views and your comments and concerns. Following that, on the 17th of October, the Resident Service Select Committee comments similar to yours, more scrutiny there, and it will close the consultation period on the 24th of October 2022. Now, we've consulted widely. That's the trade bodies, residents associations, our responsible authorities, and also anyone we feel be affected to this update for the gambling policy. The gambling policy needs to be reviewed every 3 years. Our last one was updated in 2019, and so this is the reason why we are reviewing the Statement of Gambling Policy. So what changes have been proposed? I can say that as part of this process, we've looked at the current gambling policy, We've also looked at the guidance for the licensing authorities, which was last updated in May 2021. We've also looked at the Gambling Commission's licence conditions and codes of practice, which was last updated in October 2020. And finally, a policing policy white paper review of the Gambling Act, terms of reference and calls for evidence, which was published in December 2020. And looking through all those literature, if you like, there's no major changes to the Gambling Act, and slight changes and improvements to the guidance, and that's reflected in the changes that we have put forward to you today and as part of the consultation. I won't go through every single change. You will see in Appendix A the bullet points listed on page 10 and page 11 of the report. But what I would like to do is comment on a few additions that we've felt necessary and appropriate to go into the policy. I won't take too long. Firstly, partnership working, 1.42, 1.44. You won't have to go to every single page. I'll briefly explain them. The Gambling Commission has put in their guidance that we should be working more closely together, and that's why we've expressly put this in the report. Not only working closely with the Gambling Commission, but also the trade as well. And that's reflected in also the approach that we will be taking to carry out more enforcement visits with our colleagues at the Gambling Commission, which is very much on the cards for us, because it's an important area and one that we don't want to lose sight of. There's also a section that we've improved on in enforcement section, 1.48 to 1.53, and particularly in the area of test purchasing, we've seen from the literature and the updates that age verification and underage gambling is a particular source of problem, and so we've included it in that section there. We've also improved our general principles about enforcement policy, the principles of reasonableness, transparency, and educating and having a staggered and approach to enforcement. We've also put in a section on the equality duty, 1.56. So this is a licensing authority as a public sector has an equality duty to the following: age, disability, sex, race, pregnancy, maternity, marriage and civil partnership. And so we've expressly put this in there as well. And you will see as part of the consultation, I also drafted an equality impact assessment, which is on page 77 of the report, and that's at Appendix C. Another topical area that we've included, 1.59 to 1.60, modern day slavery. And here the licensing authority acknowledged the implementation of the Modern Day Slavery Act in 2015 and their statutory responsibilities. We feel that the licensing authority can play a role in being proactive in protecting modern day slavery, identifying it and reporting it, and so we've put that in the policy. We've also added an area of primary authority. Again, this is something that has been recommended by the Gambling Commission, and it simply works very closely for what our trading standard colleagues and our environment and health do. So the best example I can think of is a particular borough will be in charge of a brand or a company. So Fuller's, for example, is based in Chiswick, Hounslow. So if there was any problems with issues that we were having here locally with Fuller's, we would contact that borough in a way of being consistent and working together with them. And so we've put that primary authority an important thing. And there's also an issue about the way gambling is advertised. That's more to do with the Gambling Commission, but we've also added a section in 1.63, the advertising of gambling, and particularly that's dealt with by the Advertising Standards Authority. So we've put some information in that. And finally, we've included human rights. It wasn't in our old one, but we felt the need to put it in here. So our obligations under the Human Rights Act 1998. So, for example, Article 6, right to a fair hearing. Article 8, right to private and family life. Article 10, freedom of expression. Those are the main changes. I should also point out, during the consultation, finance have been invited to comment, and so is legal. At this point in time, legal are happy with the information we've put in, but they will take a view after the consultation with any submissions which we received. And also from a finance point of view, our finance colleagues have said there's no issues. That's mainly because the fees are statutory and have remained in place since the implementation of the Gambling Act. So no finance issues there. So those are the main changes. I'd invite you to ask any questions or indeed put in submissions. I think I've sent you all the link when the consultation started, but it's essentially an email to licensing@hillingdon.gov.uk. And as I said earlier, the formal consultation closes on the 24th of October. Hopefully we'll have a lot of submissions, a lot of comments to ponder on and adjust it accordingly and as you see fit. But those are my submissions in relation to the review of the Gambling Act. I'm happy to take any questions or queries that you have.
Thank you for that, Daniel. It's not the easiest things to do, really, but I think the 3-year cycle is appropriate because changes in industry, changes in the law. And as Daniel said, primarily we've got to be concerned with our residents of Hillingdon. Yeah, there is a national framework about the Gambling Act, but we have to be Hillingdon Pacific. So I'm sure you've all read it page by page, word by word. I've got a few questions, but I'm going to let the committee members ask first. So we'll start with Councillor Gardner first.
Yeah, thanks for this, Daniel. I'm really pleased that you've added a section on both the equality of the equality duty and also the modern day slavery, because that has concerned me for some considerable time at some of these premises. And as Councillor Chandal said, that we have to focus on local issues, and that's why it's important that we have the three-year cycles. Thank you.
Oh, just to add, thank you for that. We recognise those two main areas, and I think and it's important when we're drafting a review to think about where we're going and how we see particularly the licensing authority going. And I think it's more about, yes, processing the applications going to hearings, but working in partnership with Immigration, Gambling Commission on routine visits and sharing our information and our expertise.
Anything else? No? Okay, right, I'll start. Right, could we, in terms of the Act, could you tell us about TUNs and OVNs, occasional use notices? Have we had any applications in the London Borough of Hillingdon?
There's a few technicalities of it, but the best way I would describe it is they're similar to temporary event notices in the Licensing Act, so temporary occasional notices. So that's where you put in for an authorisation where you don't have a permit or licence, and we've had 0 in terms of TUNs. And I can go further on that. I was looking at our applications. Certainly this year there's been no new applications. There's been 2 variations. There's been 2 transfers. And I think that's reflected in the situation they were in following the pandemic, but also the decline in, as I said, land-based premises doing gambling. It's clear from the literature that the increase in gambling is seen online, which the Gambling Commission recognise, and those are the main issues for us, and they're the main regulator for online stuff.
Okay, I'm just going to shoot these out. So, one, keen to know about, do we have any stats from our partners, all the big gambling companies, about self-exclusion? Do we have any kind of data? Because it is a pretty difficult thing to do, to exclude yourself from gambling premises.
Yes.
So do we have anything on those lines?
No, we don't, but I can certainly ask the main change. We're talking about William Hill, Ladbrokes. I don't know if they'll be willing to sort of share them, but I know as part of our inspections we look at those self-exclusions and we look at their records. So they certainly do keep them. There's no obligation for them to share them with us. But I can certainly ask a couple of our contacts if they're willing to share that, and I can put that forward as in our consultation.
Just for committee members, that's where if somebody believes they have a gambling issue, that they exclude themselves. I think that is absolutely critical, really, to know these kind of things, because gambling is an illness, or I don't know what you kind of call it. When you hear stories, I mean, they will make you cry. Right, we're going to move on to page 81 now. I have a concern about what has been written here, and maybe I didn't understand it correctly when I read it 3 or 4 times, and even this morning. I'll read it. You know, there's some staff at gambling premises from black, Asian and minorities whose first language may not be English and will therefore require some assistance and clarification when licensing officers are carrying out the enforcement roles. How does that work? I mean, the rules are quite simple. Let me just finish first. They're quite simple. I mean, you know, as with licensing, you walk in, people there who work for you got to be competent, especially when it comes to gambling. You know, it's not a case about just churning this stuff in, because the machines are awfully addictive in terms of... I grew up at a time when you used to put £1 or 50 pence in the machine and that was it. Now you put your credit cards, you put cash in, £20, there we go, and it shoots it up. Now, and then obviously on part of the C2 as well, how you are dealing with it, I imagine, what it says. But I'm just concerned with the actual content of that we are allowing people to be working in areas of huge responsibility. Yeah. What is their goal? Is their goal just to make sure those machines are filled up as fast as possible, don't care who it is? Yeah, because if they don't understand, if they cannot explain it to you guys, then who can explain it to them? Why are we going to the extent of saying, listen, if English isn't your first language, but they've got to understand it. They've got to speak at basic level. Just clarify it for me. Take your time, because I think it's very, very important.
I think it's important as well, and I think we've highlighted and been quite transparent on it. And this is, you know, it's a quality impact assessment, so we have to assess risk, and that's certainly, you know, a risk that we have to consider. It's similar to going to an off licence. What I would say and clarify, it's not a huge problem in terms of what we see, but I've certainly noticed when we've carried out inspections, maybe it's nervousness from people who get inspected by us and not familiar with it. Sometimes there's a communication issue, but it's certainly something that we've raised in terms of a potential risk for the equality impact assessment. I'm not saying it's a huge problem, but something that we should be aware of.
I don't know how everybody else feels, but it doesn't come across to me in that statement. It doesn't come across as that. If it is a minor problem, then I think we need to show that in there, that this is one-offs, one or two in all our premises. Because to me, this is saying, in the south of the borough, mainly these are the customers, so these are the guys employed. I get that. They speak the lingo and all the rest of it. I get that. But in terms of to you guys, you're the enforcement. You're the guys who make sure this is right first time. No second chances. If they cannot explain to you, then I think there's a potential issue there.
And I think that's something I can certainly clarify or amend in this quality impact assessment. And what I would say, if on the occasions that I've carried out visits or my colleagues have carried out visits, that would be highlighted and sent to, you know, we would write to the company, but also all that information that we advise on is public record. It can be disclosed to them as well. So it's a way of improving their systems and their processes. But certainly, I can look at adjusting that.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
I think the emphasis should be more on potential difficulties. I mean, we know through sitting on the subgroups that sometimes their language and understanding is a barrier. So I think if you put in, it could be potentially problematic. Yeah.
That's very helpful, Councillor. I will do that.
And also, not to labour on that, do we have, or we're allowed to put down whether it's male, female gambling, or because we've identified his Asian and minority ethnic background, because I think that sort of dovetails into many other aspects as well, please.
Certainly, Chairman. That's a good point.
Any other questions, members? No? Okay. Thank you for that, Daniel. Right, we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the forward planner. Any comments on that? Oh, we'll move on to Mark first.
Thank you, Chairman. No, just to say, we've got a couple more meetings before the end of the municipal year. We've scheduled a presentation from the ASBIT team for the January one, but if members have any other ideas of particular presentations, maybe from responsible authorities, then let me know either here or outside the meeting, and I can populate that agenda. But it's really for you to look ahead to see what's coming up.
Councillor Gardner.
Sorry, could I suggest that we have some sort of report from the police, because we have on occasions had applications in that we've had concerns about, and yet the police haven't. It'd be interesting to know what their rationale is.
Would that then be case specific? Because an overview, because the police will say, look, we've got no concerns because we've had no reports, nobody's turned up to the no 99 calls or anything else. If it's specific, I think that will be to certain cases. I think then it'll be more direct and succinct. They'll say this is the reason why, but otherwise, I think they'll just be reading off page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is what we do. And this is how we do it.
Well, it might be quite nice to actually hear them say what they do, because it's in a public arena, and then we know what they do. So it's like a risk assessment.
I think that's Daniel.
Well, I was just going to add, if it's helpful, we've got a very good relationship with Dave and Penny, so we can certainly ask them, and they're more than happy to assist. I know that. It's just a matter of fitting time, but I'll certainly ask them.
That's a good one. I also remember have we had any visits to licensed premises arranged yet? Because I am very, very keen that our new councillors that we had who have not sat on it really do need to go. You know, I know they might go into the office and buy their sort of case of lager or whatever So I think it's a good idea for them to actually pick up on, you know, signage where the all the bits and pieces should go, and those shisha pipes. I've seen a lot of those shisha pipes now in off licences as well.
Yeah, Chairman, I can't hide from this one. That was squarely on me. I sent out a couple of invites, but the actual execution of taking councillors out hasn't happened, so I will get on that particularly.
Anything else? Nope. Okay. We can now move on to part 2. We can switch off the cameras.